Well, perhaps we shouldn't just keep to that first moment and progress a bit in developments. Well, what we saw was very clearly that democratization came to a certain level, that market reform came to a certain level and to a certain extent, or that a market was created which was not always a kind of Schumpeterian market. The small of is beautiful was not always what was introduced. Holdings and concerns were created, which indeed did perhaps not play according to the rules of the market. In any case, we have the impression until now that democratization and Europeanization, because all those countries of Central and Eastern Europe, 10 of them accessed to the European Union, that democratization and Europeanization was a selective process, that indeed things changed, but that a fundamental political instability remained in place. And when we look at political development also in your country, Mr. Bokros, you see that indeed there is a problem of political instability. Of course you can say, well, isn't that the essential feature of a democracy? A democracy is about changes in governments each time and parliaments each time after elections. So what's the problem? But there is also a problem about, well, different mentalities, perhaps, path dependencies that come from the past, where you see that people react in a different way. For example, to the so-called European rule. When I hear Hungarian colleagues speaking about Europeanization and about the accession to Europe, they refer to what they lived through in the past, when there were other rulers they had to obey. And they said to me, especially the sociologists, they say to me, we learned in the past how to deal with rulers. And now it's not Moscow anymore, but it's Brussels. But we know how to deal with rulers. So the question is, and that was also the main concern of the organizers of the panel of this evening, what about differences in mentality of the people? Is there a kind of mental wall that is still existing, or that perhaps becomes more explicit because of identity problems that have arisen in those countries? Do you see something like that happening? And indeed, did European integration perhaps speed up that problem of finding a new identity and trying to get to just understanding oneself, perhaps first of all, as a people and as a state? So my question is, what do you think about all this, this development where you say, well, perhaps a mental wall was created? The public is very interested in your answers. So, can you start perhaps?
Yeah. Many things to comply with. First of all, I think that this has already been mentioned, but again it should be stressed that Central and Eastern Europe is not a homogeneous region. So we're moving from Gorbachev to the new European Union members, passing Yugoslavia, leaving behind Belarus, not talking about the Caucasus. All of these countries have had different fates, and you can't just all mix them together. But I understand we're now discussing Central and Eastern Europe, the new member states, and the mental wall between them. About democratization, first of all, I think it's pretty arrogant as a Belgian to say that democracy does not work in Eastern Europe, as if it smoothly works in Belgium. There are also in Western Europe many examples of democratic threats. Think of Jörg Haider in Austria. Think of Pim Fortuyn in the Netherlands. Maybe these are just short periods of instability, of threat, but after all, the same happens in Central and Eastern Europe. So I wouldn't say that there is an enormous gap between the East and the West concerning democratization. The same applies to the perception of Brussels and of Europe. I think that although Brussels is only 20 kilometers from Leuven, the European capital is as far for us as for the Hungarians or for the Poles. I don't
We're
think.
the founding members of the European Union, which makes a difference, no?
In the mentality, I don't know. I think that the lack of democracy, the intransparency is also, these are also issues that are touched upon in Belgian media and Western European media. I don't think that the European Union is more transparent for us than for the East. But this is maybe something we could discuss on later. Then concerning, I'm also always glad if somebody mentions mentality, because mentality is such a tricky word. But you can't define it, you can't label it. It's something that is subject to development. But if we discuss mentality, I don't think that there is such a huge difference between the East and the West. First of all, we must take into consideration the fact of generations. 1989 is already 20 years behind us. I always remember when I traveled for the first time to Poland with my children. My daughter was 5 years old, and we had warned her that we would really go to a different region, that she would see many poor people, and we all gave her our views, our stereotypes, our cliches of Eastern Europe, and then she arrived. She said, "This is a normal country." So for that generation, Eastern Europe is not that different as is the West. You see much more or similar or situations of poverty, of decline in Portugal or in Sicily, than similar situations as in Poland and in Hungary. Still a lot of things that maybe I'll get to.
Yeah.